First, Emma O'Kelly, who's education correspondent for RTE and also chair of the Dublin Broadcasting branch of the NUJ and vice chair of the trade union group in RTE. Emma, good morning.
Good morning, Pat.
Now, what is your reaction to, first of all, hearing it from colleagues in print rather than hearing it from the Director General himself?
Yes, well, Pat, I'll say first of all, I haven't seen the document, so I'm relying entirely on what those colleagues have been writing and saying. And we will have a say in this, the staff will, we will insist on that. But yes, it is upsetting, it's dismaying for staff across the organisation to have heard the news in this way. Pat, I'd love to say it's shocking, but it's not. We're used to this. I fully expected, and so did many of my colleagues, that we would be reading about this elsewhere before we were told ourselves in RTE by our bosses.
Now, obviously, a few executives within RTE were aware of the document because they prepared it. But do you suspect the leak came from inside the House or from Leinster House?
You know, Pat, I don't know, and it would be a bit rich if a journalist was complaining about journalists receiving leaks. So just to be very clear on that, I'm not complaining about this, but I am unhappy that it was leaked by some side, whether that was RTE, whether that was government, I don't know. And at this stage, I don't really care because, as I say, we mostly knew that this was the way it was going to happen. It feels a lot like Groundhog Day. A colleague sent me an email from November 2019, Pat, which was the DG apologising for us learning in this way from the media outside of RTE about 200 redundancies in RTE. So we're used to this.
Yeah. The problem being, I suppose, that if it came in-house, it's perfidy of the worst order. If it came from Leinster House, it shows that political games are being played by somebody.
Well, I mean, there are political games being played left, right and centre with RTE, and that's one of my problems with all of this. We're hearing today about cuts, 1 in 5 of staff, more programmes being pushed out into the private sector, but we've heard nothing about a vision about what RTE should be from government. So to me, all of this is putting the cart before the horse. We're being asked to slash, but we have no idea of what government wants. We've no vision. There's a paralysis around all of that.
The problem is, whose vision should it be? Because obviously the government can influence the funding that RTE gets. But Minister Martin said she didn't want a menu. She wanted decisions. She wanted, a declaration from RTE as to what it would do. The newspapers, the limited leaks they produce, we don't know the chapter and verse. There may well be at the top of this document a vision from Kevin Backhurst of what he sees, but that doesn't make the news. Aspiration is not great news or hard news, but redundancies make hard news. Flogging off the campus, that's hard news. Outsourcing programs to Cork, that's hard news. So that's what the journalists, even if they had the whole document, they wouldn't bother with the vision. They'd go for the hard fact.
Of course, and I would hope that there will be vision in this document. But there's one voice that has been missing from this entire debate, and that is the voice of the public. What does the public want from public service media? That's the voice I'd like to hear, and that's why I'm putting this towards government, because government represents the people. And when I talk about looking for a vision and looking for a sense of direction, that's what I'm talking about. I would certainly hope that there will be some level of vision coming out of this document from RTE, but we need to go much wider than this. We spent the whole summer talking about the need for a culture shift in RTE, for transformation in RTE. If now, months after all that, we're coming out of all that, and we're simply talking about, as I say, Groundhog Day, slashing staffing numbers in RTE and cutting spending, well then, I would ask, well, what was all we went through, all that upheaval, all that debate, what was all that about in that case?
The notion that there would be, over a period of 4 years, a reduction of 20% in the staff numbers by 400, with the prospect of 40 of those happening next year. 40, by the way, as 10% of the total number that is being sought, seems a pretty low target for year one.
Well, yeah, but again, you see, that depends on funding as well. Even for people to go, you need, unless you're talking about, presumably we're talking about voluntary redundancies, and voluntary redundancies cost money. So presumably that's why that is the case. But going to the wider issue, like 1 in 5 staff being lost from across the organisation. I mean, people are kind of going. We just can't begin to imagine where those cuts will come from. And that goes to another part of what we're reading about, and that is the increased number of programmes that are going to be, or increasing the number of programmes to be coming from outside. Now, I don't know if it's to 50% or by 50%, that needs to be clarified, but that is also potentially very, very worrying, because I'm asking, and other people are asking, does that mean that programmes that are currently made in-house by creative people in proper jobs, with proper pay, with things like maternity leave, with holiday pay, are those same programs in years to come going to be made in a kind of gig economy? And this is no disrespect to the independent sector, by the way. Many of my friends work in the independent sector and they do great work. But are we going to be replacing, secure, decent jobs with decent working conditions, with people working, from project to project,
Well, Emma, the hot water that RTE got itself into over treating people who were effectively fully employed as not being fully employed. So perhaps they're trying to avoid that pitfall by, making pushing more and more people into the gig economy, and then depending on the government to make rules for the gig economy, whether you're delivering pizzas or whether you're making programs.
I mean, we've fought long and hard for decent terms and conditions in RTE. It's a tough fight. But when conditions fall in RTE, they go through the absolute floor in the sector surrounding it. And I'm not even really talking about people who currently work in RTE. I'm looking to the future, and we want RTE to be a home for talented, for creative young people who aspire to work in the sector. And we want them to have decent working conditions. And
if the stuff is being outsourced, though, clearly it means fewer bodies are required to create the programs within. I mean, is that the logic they're following? Make fewer programs in-house, therefore fewer people, more technical people, more artistic people, more creative people work outside what we used to call the factory.
Well, that's what I can only imagine, because I can only put those two things together. Incredible reduction in staff, coupled with this commitment to dramatically increasing the number of programming coming from outside. I mean, that is basically privatising a lot of what RTE currently does. It's sending public money into a pretty unregulated private sector, and that is extremely worrying, especially, as I say, for young people coming in. Also, we're asking the question, will some staff in RTE take, decent redundancy payments and then step outside of RTE and continue to do the same work that they did in RTE with the cushion of redundancy payment for a private company?
Yeah, that is what has happened in the past.
Yes. Absolutely.
I mean, you had people who were on cameras, for example, who were on staff, and then all the OB units were got rid of, and many of these cameramen got very useful work outside as freelancers.
Yes, and they can do it because they have the cushion of a redundancy payment. But again, I'm talking about young, talented people coming into this industry, people who, will hope to have families, will hope to pay the rent, hope to get mortgages. How will they fare in a sector that has been will be rife with the kind of conditions that we're talking about?
I know you're under time pressure, Amber. I'll ask you just two further things. Talk of selling off stuff on a part of the site, and I've discovered through Seamus Dooley actually that the RT canteen is a listed building, the RT radio centre is a listed building, the RT office block is a listed building. I don't know what they're going to sell.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's a problem there, and I'm not speaking from any particular attachment to the campus.
No, and you can't. That office block is tired and old.
Can't afford to live anywhere close to where they work because of property prices. So, by the way, there's an awful lot to be said for moving more of what we do out to places like Cork and Limerick. We certainly would need to know how that's going to happen, but I can't see much of a opposition to that as a principle. But yeah, there are huge problems with reducing the footprint in Donnybrook because of the issues that you have raised.
All right, Emma, you will find out later today the full detail of the document. I presume, I'm hoping that there will be some inspirational vision of what might lie ahead rather than just the nuts and bolts. But Emma, thank you very much for joining us. That's Emma O'Kelly, who is education correspondent within RTE, but also chair of the Dublin Broadcasting branch of the NUJ and vice chair of the trade union group in RTE.